It's wild what happened to this country. It's wild how many brave people, how many amazing stories of heroism there are on that day. Something I always do on 9/11, I always read the story. I think it's an Esquire, and it's about the falling man photo. I don't know if you remember this photo, but it's like this amazing photo of this guy. He's head first. It almost looks like he's like intentionally flying. It's just the craziest photograph, and it goes through who that guy might be, and it just takes you into the perspective of, your loved ones goes to work down there, and cell phones aren't working, and some people, they get a call 4 hours later from their dad like, oh, I'm okay, and then some people never got that call, and you just realize, man, what a crazy and terrible and tragic day, but what an amazing number of heroic stories that came out of it, right? It's this amazing duality of terrible tragedy, incredible heroism, and that's like the story of 9/11 in this country.
What is it like to talk to these people in such an intimate setting, knowing the Biden-Harris administration is actively funding terrorism?
Yeah.
And not just them, every taxpaying American. You're funding them, I'm funding them.
Right.
We're sending $40 to $87 million a week to the Taliban. IG report came out and said that they had accidentally sent $239 million to the Taliban. 9/11 was a $500,000 budget. What are they going to do with $239 million?
Yeah.
I've been working really hard to bring this to light
crazy.
with a colleague of mine, Scott Mann and Sarah Adams. We brought a petition up to bring Masood in to talk about how some of our policies are affecting Afghanistan. That bill's been kind of squashed. Bill Hagerty now is spinning something up in the Senate that's a little more aggressive. We are pending a potential government shutdown on October 1st. Would it be a good idea to shut the U.S. government down if we continue to fund terrorism?
Why have a government if it's not a functioning government? But I think what's going to happen is President Trump's going to go in there as the president-elect. They're scared of him in Russia. They're worried about him in Europe because they know that he actually means what he says. And I think he's going to be able to come to a deal very quickly, because this is what's insane about this, dude, is the Russians, the Ukrainians, the Europeans are all saying, we can't fight this war forever. Well, why the hell are you fighting it for another day if all of them are trying to find a way to solve it? The answer is Joe Biden is asleep at the wheel. Kamala Harris doesn't know what the hell she's doing. And so their policy is throw money at this problem, hope the Ukrainians are able to achieve a military victory that even the Ukrainians are saying we can't achieve. Donald Trump's policy is, yes, to be strong, but also to be smart.
Let's talk about how close we are to potential World War III.
Way too close.
How could this end up in World War III?
I think a couple of different ways, right? You get to a situation where is a Russian red line crossed? They're a nuclear power. Do they start using tactical nuclear weapons in eastern Ukraine? If that happens, then at least some of the Eastern European countries like Poland have to get involved. That balloons into a World War III scenario. I think the most likely and the most dangerous scenario is Iran and Israel right now. What if in North Israel, a bunch of Iranian-backed militias start killing thousands of Israeli civilians? So the Israelis invade, do the Iranians counterattack, and now you have Israel, Iran in a regional conflict. And then the final thing, man, is China wants Taiwan, right? Everything that we have tells us the Chinese want Taiwan. America, I think, has left Taiwan in a really crappy position because we've sent all of our weapons to Ukraine. The Taiwanese, I don't know that they could repel a Chinese invasion right now. Kamala Harris is not a capable human being. Do you really want, in the midst of a high-pressure conflict, her negotiating with Xi Jinping about Taiwan? Or do you want her over there in Moscow or Kiev negotiating with the Russians, with Vladimir Putin about the peace settlement in Ukraine? This is scary, scary stuff. And you talk about a person like Kamala Harris who can't even answer a simple question without retreating into slogans and talking points. What about when the cameras are off and she's in a private room with world leaders? That's scary, scary stuff. And that's maybe what worries me about more than any of her domestic policies is what happens if the shit hits the fan? I don't think Kamala Harris can handle it.
How exactly are you going to go after and remove all of these immigrants?
First, let me preface that because I think you got to stop the bleeding. Whenever you got a problem, like somebody cuts your leg off, stop the bleeding and then figure out how you're going to reattach the leg. The stop the bleeding thing that we have to do is reclose the border, re-implement deportations, re-implement the Remain in Mexico policy. People don't fully realize that the reason the border is such a nightmare is that somebody will come into the country, say that they're seeking asylum. And if you're Border Patrol, you have to let them into the country. They get a work permit. They can can live in the country for 10, 12, 15 years, and then maybe 10, 12, 15 years later, they get a court date to adjudicate whether their asylum claim is legitimate. But of course, most of them don't show up for that court date. I think it's probably 25 million illegal aliens who are here right now. And I always say, it's like eating a sandwich. It's like asking somebody, how are you going to eat this sandwich? It's 10 times as big as your mouth. You take the first bite, then you take the second bite, then you take the third bite.
Looks like Elon is going to be on the cabinet and
Yeah.
will be in the charge on the government efficiency. Have you spoken with him about the plan?
I think that the way that this is envisioned is you set up an organization with very smart people from the private sector and a few smart people from government, and you go in and you say, how are we going to fix all the broken inefficiencies? It's going to look much different in, say, the Department of Defense versus Social Security. One of the biggest problems in Social Security is fraud. I've actually had friends of mine who have had their Social Security account drawn down, and then when they go to the IRS says, oh yeah, an illegal alien used your Social Security number, but we're not allowed to reveal that person's information. A person who's using your Social Security number to defraud you, your own government is saying, we can't tell you who that is, right?
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. At the Department of Defense, it's not so much a fraud problem as it is a procurement problem.
Is there any estimation on what percentage of the government we can see go away? I think when he took Twitter, it was 80% of the workforce?
Yeah, that's right. The way that we lose the AI race is by all of this ridiculous diversity crap that forces companies and forces innovators to not hire the best people. This is my theory about what's really changed about Elon Musk. Dude, Elon Musk was like a center-left Democrat 10 years ago. What really changed with Elon Musk? Elon Musk wants to get to Mars, and to get to Mars, he needs the smartest engineers in the world. He wants to hire who he wants to hire, not who a government diversity bureaucrat tells him who to hire. I think that's the big reason why Elon Musk has become more conservative, is he just wants to hire the best people for the job. He doesn't want bureaucrats telling him who he has to hire. That's the second thing, is we've got to end this ridiculous diversity, equity, inclusion garbage. Best person for the job, good old-fashioned American merit. That's how you win the race to AI. That's how you get to Mars. AI, you need software and you need hardware. What is the hardware? It's computer chips. And this is where China has really, really invested, and America's got to do a better job.
On the subject of censorship, since we're on with Elon, we know what's happening in Brazil. They blocked X. Now they've taken Starlink, to my understanding. Are we going to see any blowback if you and President Trump take office?
Yes.
About all of the censorship that happened before?
Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg just released that letter saying, oh, I fell to, victim to the FBI pressuring me to censor. Are we going to see any repercussions for people that censored?
Yes, we're going to fire the people who censored. We're going to fire the people who were telling Mark Zuckerberg and all the other technology companies that they needed to censor. Fire the 50 intelligence operatives who said that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. A lot of those people still have security clearances. Strip every single one of those people of their security clearances. Fire every single person. You cannot lie, take your position of public trust, and lie to the American people for political purposes. It's disgraceful, and people have to suffer consequences for it. Now, the other thing is we've got to be willing to use American soft power to promote a free speech society.
Taylor Swift just came out last night.
I saw that.
Endorsed Kamala.
All respect to Taylor Swift. I don't think that billionaires endorsing candidates, celebrities endorsing candidates really matters that much. I think that we have to make our pitch to the American people. There are issues that affect all Americans, but I think affect women voters in particular. So public safety. Women voters want their kids to be able to grow up in safe communities. They want their kids to not be affected by the terrible fentanyl that's coming across the southern border. But I was in Georgia the other day, and these cops showed me fentanyl disguised as child's candy, nerds, because the cartels are using this to get around our security protocols. What happens when you're a mom and your kid picks up a packet of candy on the playground and it kills them because they ate a piece of candy and it happened to be fentanyl that a cartel had brought into our communities? I think our message to single women, to married women is, we want you to grow up in safety and security, and we're going to pursue policies that make it easier for you to walk around the street in your own country and feel safe and secure.